Welcome to Embodied Art Studio. I'm Michelle Baker, the owner, going over the basics of acrylic painting with you. The first thing is you're going to want to wear an apron. We've got ours hanging up by the door when you first come in because acrylic paints can stain your clothes. It's super disappointing when that happens. So we always want to put on our apron before we come over to the paint buffet and get any paint going. Second, what is a palette? A palette's basically just what holds your paint. It could be a paper plate. We've got these kind of palettes here. And what we like to do is cover it with some wax paper. So you pull out a sheet, you lay it down and put just 2 pieces of tape on there to hold it down. This was an idea from a student that we had a while ago, and it's awesome because when you finish painting for the night, you just roll up the wax paper and throw it away. Love that. You're also gonna have a bucket of water and a towel underneath of it. That's for washing out the brushes. And then obviously we're gonna wanna have different brushes. For acrylic painting, especially in the beginning, you're gonna want a soft brush. So I always do this to find my brushes. I'm just trying to find one. Sometimes they get a little bit stiff when they've been washed a lot, so you might be able to like soften them up if you just do this on your hand. So going to be finding a couple of brushes to get myself started. You also might want a palette knife, though this will be for mixing. I'll go over that in a second. When you're learning to paint, you're really learning what to expect from a medium. It helps to know what its properties are because you can't want it to do something that it's just not going to be able to do. Acrylic paints are how you get those really bold and vibrant colors. That's one of the things that I'm attracted to when it comes to acrylics. They're very forgiving and they dry fast. So that can be really nice because it helps you go through the painting quicker. And it also is a little bit more challenging when it comes to blending because it can start to dry when you're still wanting to get things blended. So those are things that you can expect from acrylics. We buy this kind that's in a bottle, and when you pour it out, you're gonna notice that it's kind of soupy, right? It doesn't hold a shape. It's gonna drip as I hold it like this. So that means that I'm not actually gonna need to add water to these paints unless I'm actually wanting it to look translucent. Instead, I'm gonna wanna use it just right off the tray like that because it's already in a watery form. Now you might buy acrylics in a tube and they squeeze out and they have more of like a snake coil shape when they come out. Those kind you might add water to. But for ours, you're not going to. And even though acrylics give us those bold colors, something that people don't know is that they also are somewhat transparent. That means that when you're painting your very first layer on your canvas, you're most likely gonna see your brush strokes, and people hate that and often think that they're doing something wrong. It's actually not the case. What you wanna know about acrylics is you get those bold colors and you can get rid of your brush strokes through layers. Layers means that you let it dry completely. It's absolutely dry, and then you go back and you'll paint it a second time, sometimes even a third time. That's how you build up color, and the more, say, yellow that I put on top of yellow, the more vibrant it's going to be. When you do have paint on your brush, it's important to put it into the water when you're not using it. Because remember, acrylic paints dry fast. So if you were to just let your paintbrush with paint on it sit on your palette for 5 or 10 minutes, the paint is going to dry on the brush and it's never going to come off because acrylics are permanent. That's why they stain our clothes. So to keep your brushes working, you're always going to want to put your brush in water and optimally wash it out as well. If I'm right in the middle of painting, I might just set it in there as a holding area, but otherwise you're going to wash it. And to wash your brush, you actually want to dab it at the bottom. Listen, you can hear that I'm vigorously moving it around. So you can't just swish it in the water and think that it's going to get clean. And then the true test is after you have swished your paintbrush around, when you dry it off, you should not see any paint on the towel. Okay, that's how I know. If there's some yellow coming off, then I gotta go back and do some more washing. When it comes to mixing, instead of using a brush, you can use a palette knife, and that can be really great because these are just easy to clean and you don't get a whole bunch of paint in the bristles. So with a palette knife, you're gonna pick up your different colors and then you're gonna mix them together like that. Important things to know about mixing is that you don't want to bring blue into your yellow or yellow into your blue. You want to bring them into a third location and mix. The reason for this is you don't know exactly what ratio you're looking for. So putting a whole bunch of blue into all of your yellow, you're only going to get one kind of green, and you might have wanted it to be lighter. So we want to start with just a little bit and see where we're at. Oh, I want a little more yellow, so I bring that in, swirl it around. And something that I really want to say about the palette is this is a place where we experiment. Sometimes as adults, we think we should know everything up front, but it's not true. As a painter, you're going to find out what things look like on your palette, and it might not be what you wanted, and that's fine. You're just going to go get a different color and try again. So really allow this to be a space where you can find things out. If you use a palette knife, washing it in the water is not really going to do much, so that's when you really want to use a paper towel and you just wipe it clean. Okay? Another big question is, which brush do I use? And we will go over this a lot in class because there's a lot of answers depending on what you're doing. But in general, if you're going to paint the whole canvas or half the canvas, you definitely want a big brush, okay? And if you're going to paint a small detail, then the smaller the brush, the better, right? Other than that, if you're painting something rounded like a ball, you're going to want to get a rounded brush. This is going to help with that shape. Whereas if you're painting something square or with sharp angles or corners, you're going to want something more square, or this is called an angle brush. So those are the basics of which brush to use, and then you can always use your palette knife for mixing, and you can use your palette knife to lay some paint down on the canvas as well. The last thing I want to talk about is color mixing. There are three basic colors called the primaries, and those are red, yellow, and blue. Primary means that you cannot make this color, and we have to have it in a bottle because there's no other way to get a primary. Now, red and yellow on the color wheel, if you notice what's right in between is orange. That's because red and yellow make orange. It's kind of like math. Red plus yellow equals orange, which makes sense if you think about it, because orange is kind of like red, but it's lighter, right? The yellow brings it over into a lighter version of red, which is orange, okay? Let's do the next. Yellow and blue together are going to make green, okay? Same thing, the yellow brings the blue over into a warmer, yellowier version of itself, which is green. And last, red and blue are going to come together to make purple. And the color wheel makes it simple because there's only one version of the red and the yellow and blue. Those are the straight up hardcore primaries, but in painting you actually have a lot more choice. There can be many different kinds of reds and yellows, and especially blues. Blues have a huge spectrum, and so the blue that you use is going to inform the green that you get or the purple that you get. And this is a really big deal for beginning students, because when you mix red and yellow and you don't get the purple that you want, you think, oh, I probably did it wrong. And it's not actually true. It's just that you're only going to get one kind of purple from the red and the blue. The only thing that you have control over is how much red or how much blue you put in, and that will just make it either a redder version of a purple or a bluer version. And one last thing to think about when you're mixing is that certain colors are stronger than other colors. So at Embodied, we always say yellow's the wimpy kid. Yellow gets overpowered by all other colors. That means when I'm gonna go mix, I don't need very much red to influence yellow, okay? So again, I'm gonna always mix in a middle location, but watch, I'm just gonna get a little dab of red and swirl it in there, and it completely changes the yellow, right? So that's why I don't wanna bring yellow over into my pile of red, because I didn't even make a dent in it. It's still completely just red, right? I just want to say I'm really excited for you to get more creativity into your life. It really is something that you're going to look forward to every week, especially here at Embodied, because you're going to walk in the door and we're going to all be happy to see you.